The main reason so many people embark on a spiritual awakening journey is because they want to change the circumstances of their lives. If you take a closer look at those who are on this path, you'll notice a common pattern. Almost everyone begins their journey during a period of deep struggle. They may be dealing with emotional pain, failed relationships, financial hardship, anxiety, depression, or a lingering feeling that something in their life is missing. Even those who appear to have achieved success, those who have accumulated wealth, status, and material possessions, often carry a profound sense of emptiness within them. On the surface, their lives may seem complete, yet deep inside, they still feel disconnected from themselves. They have everything they thought they wanted, but somehow it still isn't enough. This is where the spiritual journey truly begins. The purpose of this journey is to help you become aware of the parts of yourself that you have been unconsciously denying. It is about bringing into the light the aspects of yourself that you have spent your entire life repressing simply to fit into the system. From the moment we are born, society presents us with a set of rules, expectations, beliefs, and conditioning that tells us who we should be. We are taught how to think, how to behave, what emotions are acceptable, and even how we should define success. Little by little, we begin shaping ourselves around these expectations because we all want to belong. But what most people fail to realize is that this conditioning often comes at a cost. In order to fit in, you are forced to reject certain parts of yourself. You learn to hide emotions that make others uncomfortable. You suppress thoughts that don't align with society's expectations. You abandon qualities that once came naturally to you because you were taught they were wrong, inappropriate, or unacceptable. Over time, these rejected aspects of yourself don't simply disappear. They remain buried deep within your subconscious, quietly influencing the way you think, feel, and experience reality without you even realizing it. The moment you reject a part of yourself, your ego instinctively tries to compensate for that separation. It begins creating an identity that bridges the gap between the person you present to the world and the parts of yourself you have hidden away. Your ego is the part of you that gives you the experience of individuality. It allows you to perceive yourself as a unique human being with your own identity, personality, preferences, and life story. Without the ego, you would lose the very sense of self that allows you to function in this material world. Many spiritual teachers describe the ego as the enemy, but that is not entirely true. The ego is not your enemy. It only becomes a problem when there's a deep imbalance between your conscious identity, what Carl Jung referred to as the personal self, and the shadow, the hidden aspects of yourself that you have rejected. When these two parts become divided, chaos begins to emerge within your inner world. This is the root of inner conflict. This is why you keep repeating the same painful patterns. This is why you find yourself sabotaging your own happiness even when opportunities present themselves. And this is why, when no matter how much you try to change your external circumstances, you continue to experience the same emotional struggles. The parts of yourself that you have rejected are the very parts that contribute to your wholeness. Until they are acknowledged, accepted, and integrated, they will continue to influence your life from beneath the surface, shaping your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and the reality you experience without you even realizing it. Now, think of the ego as a smaller expression of what many spiritual traditions call the higher self. The higher self is the infinite aspect of your being. It is the part of you that exists beyond limitation, beyond fear, beyond conditioning, and beyond limiting beliefs. It is the purest expression of consciousness within you. This is what many spiritual teachings are referring to when they say that you are God or that you are the creator of your own reality. Now, before we go any further, it's important to understand what that actually means. Source, or what many people call God, is everything. Nothing exists outside of it. It is both the creator and the creation, the observer and the observed. Every form of life, every experience, and every expression of consciousness arises from this one infinite source. The higher self is the unique fragment of that infinite source that exists in every living being. But in order for that fragment of source to experience life in this material world, it must express itself through an individual identity. That individual identity is what we call the ego. So you see, the ego is not something that needs to be destroyed. It is necessary. It serves a purpose. As long as your soul is having a human experience, the ego will always be an essential part of that experience. Without it, you would lose the qualities that make you uniquely human. You would no longer have a personal perspective, individuality, or the ability to navigate this physical reality. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And no matter how spiritually awakened you become, or how much enlightenment you believe you have attained, if you neglect the human aspect of your existence, you will inevitably create disharmony within yourself. True spirituality is not about escaping your humanity. It is about learning how to embrace it while remaining connected to your divine nature. The material world itself is built upon the principle of duality. Everything exists in complementary opposites, yin and yang, light and darkness, hot and cold, joy and sorrow, life and death. You cannot fully understand one without experiencing the other. Just as the two sides of a coin cannot exist without each other, these opposing forces work together to create a complete experience of reality. The same principle exists within your own mind. Your inner world also operates through duality because your reality is ultimately a reflection of your consciousness. And when you begin to understand this, you naturally become aware of two fundamental aspects of yourself, your personal self and your shadow. Together, these form what Carl Jung referred to as the self. The self is the aspect of your being that recognizes its inseparable connection to the whole of existence. It is the undivided awareness that exists beyond judgment, beyond separation, and beyond the constant need to identify with one side over the other. It is deeply rooted in oneness with all that is. From this level of awareness, life is no longer about chasing outcomes or proving yourself right. The self does not seek victory over others. It does not seek validation. It does not divide reality into good or bad. Instead, it simply seeks balance. It simply exists in a state of being. The personal self, however, is different. It is the personal self that becomes attached to outcomes. It is the personal self that constantly seeks approval, righteousness, and the need to be perceived as good. And this is where I believe many modern spiritual teachings unintentionally create imbalance. Much of New Age spirituality places a strong emphasis on love and light. While there is nothing inherently wrong with love, compassion, and kindness, problems begin to arise when these become the only qualities we allow ourselves to express. The moment the personal self identifies exclusively with love and light, the shadow is pushed deeper into the unconscious. The individual begins avoiding every aspect of themselves that feels uncomfortable, imperfect, or socially unacceptable. They no longer want to acknowledge the parts of themselves that could be perceived as selfish, angry, cruel, or flawed. But suppressing these qualities does not make them disappear. It simply hides them from conscious awareness. Being spiritually awakened does not mean you must constantly appear kind, loving, gentle, and compassionate. Sometimes what we call being spiritual is simply the personal self wearing another mask, one that allows it to feel righteous, morally superior, and good about itself. And as long as that mask remains, true wholeness can never be achieved. Think of the personal self as the version of yourself that you consciously identify with. It is the part of you that you believe is acceptable, the part you proudly show to the world because you want others to see you in a certain way. Over the years, you begin building an identity around this version of yourself. You carefully project it outward, hoping to be seen as kind, compassionate, intelligent, successful, or spiritually evolved. But every identity comes with a cost. The more energy you invest in maintaining this carefully constructed image, the more you begin suppressing everything that doesn't fit it. This is where the shadow is born. The shadow is made up of the qualities you have labeled as unacceptable, the parts of yourself you believe are bad, selfish, cruel, weak, insecure, or unworthy. Because you fear being judged, rejected, or misunderstood, you push these aspects of yourself into the unconscious. But in doing so, you unknowingly limit your own growth. You prevent yourself from exploring the full spectrum of what it means to be human. Now, embracing your shadow does not mean hurting other people or using spirituality as an excuse for destructive behavior. That is not what shadow work is about. You can acknowledge your anger without becoming abusive. You can recognize your selfishness without exploiting others. You can become aware of your darkness without allowing it to control your actions. Shadow integration is about awareness, not indulgence. It is about giving yourself permission to honestly observe every part of your inner world without immediately condemning it. You also need to understand that reality operates according to the principle of cause and effect. Every action carries a consequence. Whatever energy you continuously project into the world eventually finds its way back to you. This is the spiritual principle that many traditions describe as karma. Each individual is responsible for their own choices, their own actions, and ultimately their own growth. Some people will continue repeating the same painful karmic cycles until they become conscious of the lessons those experiences are trying to teach them. Only then can they finally break free. This is why constantly trying to make everyone around you comfortable can sometimes interfere with their own journey. If you spend your entire life rescuing people from the consequences of their own decisions simply because you believe spirituality is only about being loving, compassionate, and agreeable, you may unintentionally delay the lessons their soul needs to experience. Growth is often uncomfortable. Transformation rarely happens without challenge. Sometimes the greatest act of compassion is allowing people to face the consequences of their own choices so they can discover the wisdom hidden within those experiences. The shadow is neither good nor bad. Just as yin balances yang, the shadow balances the personal self. Neither is complete without the other. When the shadow is ignored, however, it doesn't disappear. Instead, it begins expressing itself indirectly. It manifests as anxiety, as fear, as insecurity, as self-doubt, as a lack of confidence, not because it wants to destroy you, but because it is desperately seeking your attention. It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be understood. It wants to be integrated into your conscious awareness. This is the reasons why so many people experience emotional turmoil after beginning a spiritual awakening or activating the sixth chakra, which is the pineal gland. Opening the pineal gland itself is not meant to be painful. If anything, it is a doorway to a higher level of awareness, a doorway back to your natural state of being. But if the mind is still divided, if the shadow is still rejected, if years of suppressed emotions remain buried beneath the surface, then higher awareness simply illuminates everything that has been hidden. It brings the unconscious into the light. For many people, this can feel overwhelming because they have spent their entire lives identifying only with the qualities associated with the heart chakra: love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and selflessness. While these qualities are beautiful and necessary, they are only one aspect of the whole. Without acknowledging the shadow that balances them, spirituality can become another identity, another mask, another way for the personal self to convince itself that it has transcended its humanity. But true awakening is not about choosing love while rejecting darkness. It is about becoming conscious enough to embrace the totality of who you are. Only then can genuine inner balance begin to emerge.
So the key is not to fight these uncomfortable parts of yourself. The key is to embrace them, to become curious about them, to understand why they exist instead of trying to make them disappear. The parts of yourself that make you feel uncomfortable are often the very parts you have spent your entire life repressing just to fit into the system. And the moment you begin exploring these forgotten aspects of yourself, something remarkable begins to happen. Your awareness becomes more deeply rooted in the present moment. Your mind gradually lets go of constant self-criticism. You stop judging yourself so harshly. You stop taking other people's words and actions so personally. The situations that once triggered fear, anger, insecurity, or emotional pain begin to lose their power over you. Not because the world has changed, but because you have become whole. You are no longer trying to uphold the identity of someone who must always be loving, agreeable, or spiritually perfect. You are no longer living to make everyone else feel comfortable. And, perhaps most importantly, you are no longer seeking your worth through validation, approval, love, or attention from society. This is where genuine freedom begins. Now, many people attempt to escape this inner conflict by isolating themselves during their spiritual awakening. They distance themselves from friends and family because they feel that other people's energy is draining. They believe they can no longer relate to those who have not yet awakened, or perhaps those people simply remind them of who they used to be, and they no longer want to face that version of themselves. While periods of solitude can certainly be valuable, it is important to recognize what may also be happening beneath the surface. Often, it is the shadow creating resistance. It projects irritation, discomfort, and emotional tension onto the people around you. When you are in their presence, your mind begins generating thoughts that make you feel uneasy, unsafe, or disconnected. And the interesting part is that most of the time, these thoughts are not even reflections of what is actually happening. They are projections of unresolved aspects of your own psyche. This is what creates social anxiety for so many people. It is not always the external world that is exhausting you. It is the constant conflict taking place within your own mind. The more you resist any part of yourself, the more inner chaos you create. And that constant mental conflict slowly drains your energy, your vitality, and your peace of mind. This is why balancing the personal self and the shadow is so important. As long as you are living in this material world, the ego will always have a role to play. It is not something to eliminate, it is something to understand. Understanding this will make you realize that the dark night of the soul was never about destroying the ego. Its purpose is to help you understand its nature, understanding why it exists, understanding how it protects you, and understanding how it can either create suffering or become a vehicle through which your higher self expresses itself. Some spiritual teachers describe this transformation as dissolving the false ego, but this is just a misunderstood term for the same concept as your conscious identity, which is what Carl Jung referred to as the personal self. There is no such thing as a false ego, but an ignorance of the self. And it is this ignorance that acts like a parasite within the psyche, separating you from your own wholeness. Once that ignorance is dissolved through awareness, the soul is finally able to express its full potential through the mind. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions become more intentional, your relationships become healthier, and your life begins to move with greater harmony. At that point, you are no longer trying to be good or bad, a saint or a villain, righteous or wicked, compassionate or cruel. You simply become rooted in being. You become a complete expression of yourself, and in doing so, you become a clearer expression of the divine intelligence of Source flowing through your human experience. If this video stirred something deep within you, if it challenged your beliefs, or if it made you feel uncomfortable in ways you can't quite explain, perhaps that isn't a coincidence. Perhaps your subconscious is bringing to the surface the parts of yourself that have been waiting for your attention all along. Instead of running from them, listen to them. Embrace them.
because the moment you stop rejecting yourself is the moment you begin returning to your wholeness. And from that place of wholeness, you stop sabotaging your own life. Fear begins to lose its grip. Self-doubt no longer controls your decisions. Anxiety gradually gives way to inner peace, and you begin aligning with the highest potential that has always existed within you. Not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who you have always been. This channel was created for people who are walking this path of spiritual awakening and inner transformation together. So if this message resonated with you, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos on manifestation, spiritual awakening, esoteric wisdom, Gnostic teachings, enlightenment, and personal transformation. And if you found value in this video, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Not only would I love to hear your perspective, but your engagement also helps this message reach others who may need it at exactly the right moment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.